I've just brought that. You can.
Well, hi, everybody. It's another Conversations With, and I am delighted today. I belong to AAA, and if you don't, you should. But I belong to AAA, and we get a little magazine every month, a newspaper type thing. And in there's a great, wonderful column that I enjoy reading, and it's done by John Paul. And I wrote him a note or emailed him and asked him if he'd love to come on and talk about automobiles, because that's what AAA does for a living.
Yeah.
And in addition to 9 million other things now, by the way, insurance and whatever. But he's here with me. So, John, it's delighted to have you here.
Well, thank you very much.
And the reason I called him or emailed him was I was watching television, and I am amazed at the number of car companies who have this prestigious J.D. Power Award for all the same things.
That's right. Well, it wasn't, I was going to say it wasn't that many years ago, but it's probably 20 now. If you remember the Malcolm Baldrige Award. And that was an award that some of the car companies, really hung their hat on. We won the Malcolm Baldrige Award, and they made a big deal out of it. Nobody knew who Malcolm Baldrige was, but it made it sound fantastic. And J.D. Power does a lot of awards, and they have a lot of awards for certain things, and it can be, sometimes it seems like it's an award for the first day you own the car,
yeah.
And then it's 30 days after you own the car, and then it's 3 years after you own the car. So you have to take all of the awards with a little bit of a grain of salt. Way back when, Motor Trend magazine, if you won the Motor Trend Car of the Year, to enter in, you had to agree to buy a certain amount of advertising. And then that big golden caliper, you had to make sure that was displayed every place your car was displayed. So there was, I don't want to say people bought their way into it, but there could be car companies that said, I'm not going to pay that money.
Well, it goes back to the official. I mean, the Boston Red Sox have made a fortune naming people the official soda of the Boston Red Sox, the official furniture store of the Boston Red Sox.
No, absolutely.
And what happened was, Nesson, of course, is owned by the Red Sox, and they have their TV thing. Well, now the latest is there's one bank that's the official bank of the Red Sox, and there's another bank that's the official bank of the Red Sox broadcast on Nesson.
Okay.
And they're two different banks.
Two different banks.
But I mean, and that's based on putting your big sign up in left field.
Yep.
Well,
I mean, we have a big AAA sign out on the Green Monster, so
Yeah, you're the official.
Well, we're the it's a AAA sign and the Maffrey sign we combine together out there. So, and we know there's a lot a lot of people when a ball hits over to the Green Monster and the AAA sign comes up, we know that's a good thing. But it is funny how, and I'm the president of an association called the New England Motor Press Association, and every year we do awards for the official winter vehicle of New England. So we're as bad as everybody else, and we look at, it was a few years ago that I think we had one of the compact pickup trucks won. And it was the Toyota Tacoma, I think, was the pickup truck that won. But they were the only ones that made a compact pickup truck that year. So it wasn't hard to.
It's just like I get a great kick out of there's an ad they run it every winter, and Toyota does it, and they take a Toyota Sienna with all-wheel drive, and they go up a hill against a Honda with rear-wheel drive, and then announce that they won.
Yeah.
Well, that's like taking someone who's 92. Getting someone who just ran the Boston Marathon and won it, and run up the street and say, "I just beat her." I mean, it's apples and oranges.
Yeah, it is, and they're both actually really good minivans.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
But they have each has their own place. And whether it's the front-wheel drive Odyssey or the all-wheel drive Sienna, and the Sienna is one of those vehicles that is just, if you need a minivan and you want a minivan, have an all-wheel drive, especially if you live here. Makes a ton of sense.
Well, one of the things that I find intriguing is that the Massachusetts Turnpike opened in May of 1957.
Okay.
And I remember it. And
I was only 2.
All the ramps and everything else were built for the motor vehicles of those days.
Yep.
In 1957, there was no such thing as an SUV. Didn't exist. No double-decker buses, no double tandem trucks. we had cars that were low to the ground with big chrome bumpers. You know,
Yep.
And they were steel and metal. There was no fiberglass on them. And so those things go around those turns. Well, today, and if you look at if you buy an SUV, it's right on your flap, on your sun visor. It says, this vehicle will roll over. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was a state trooper on the Pike, and he said, every single morning, we have 4 rollovers on 4 ramps.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, the first thing we get there, and he says, I remember this, he said, the guy's there, he wasn't hurt, fortunately. We get him out of the car, he was upside down. We get him out, and he said, you know, I just came off the turnpike. I was only going about 55. And the trooper said, did you see the big yellow sign up there that said
30?
30 mile an hour?
Yeah.
And it was in yellow with black letters. He says, yeah, I did. He says, now, do you think we put that up there because we had 50 of those signs and we didn't know what to do with them, so we decided to put them there?
Yeah.
He says, we've put it there because if you go over 30 or 35, you're going to do what you did, you know. And he said,
and then really, you look at that. Back when they built the turnpike, there wasn't such thing as radial tires.
No.
And if you started going fast, the car would slide a little bit, and it would catch your attention.
Yeah.
Now radial tires make the car stick to the point where eventually it starts to trip over itself and roll over. So, or you slide far enough, and then it hits the edge of the ramp, and you turn it over. So it's not surprising that happens.
The other thing too is, and I've had this we have a program called Politics as Usual that I do, and I have a lot of the local reps and senators come in, John. And I've been after them for the last 2 years. The guardrails on the Massachusetts Turnpike are this high.
Yep.
Because when they were built, that's how high the cars were.
Yep.
Couldn't get over them.
Yep.
Well, now, if you've got an SUV or any vehicle that's
pickup truck, or
you hit those, you flip right over them. And that's what happens. They flip right over. I said, you need to bring the guardrails up higher. And I said, they keep replacing the low ones.
Yeah.
I said, now the middle, they put those Jersey barriers that are much higher.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to go in the other lane.
Right.
And you won't because they're too high.
Yeah.
It'll keep your car
Yeah.
on that side of the road.
Yeah.
I said, you need to either do the same thing down there. You know how much money you're talking? I said, that's not the point. When you rip one up and you replace it, don't put a low one back.
Yeah.
That's when you put a high one back.
Yeah.
Or you put the barriers in. But my dad used to always say, son, whatever happened to common sense?
Well, there's that. Yeah. No, traffic. Part of what I do at AAA too is traffic safety. So I look at all these things, and I look at the technology that we have today, and you mentioned your wife's car and how it blinks and bings and makes all kinds of things. The latest new Mercedes, if you put it kind of in its self-driving mode and you put the turn signal on, it'll change lanes if it doesn't see anybody in the lane.
Yeah.
The problem is it only works until there's a big space in the painting of the lines. So if you're driving along and there's a turn coming up and they don't line the road right there, it shuts right off right away. And if you're somebody who's not paying attention, all of a sudden now you got to jump in and take over. Well, you weren't paying attention enough. Then it's a problem.
Well, you know, and I know, and I, one time Governor Volpe appointed me Commissioner of Highway Safety. Back in the '60s, we did the first seatbelt safety law. In fact, I had the great opportunity to debate Jerry Williams.
Oh yeah,
who was so much against that thing. And he got so mad.
Oh, he hated us. Hated AAA.
He got so mad at me because on the debate on the radio, the governor said, "Dick, you got to go do it." They keep calling me, and I'm not going to go on with him. I can't stand up to him. So I went on there and I said, "Do you have a driver's license?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Throw it out." He said, "What do you mean throw it out? What do you need it for? Who are they to make you have a driver's license?" He says, "Well, what are you talking about?" I says, "I want you to think about it. Why do you have that license? Did you pass the test? Did you read the book?" "Well, yeah, because that's what you have to do." I said, "But why?
Yeah.
Why should you have to do that? If you can go out and drive, drive. It's an automobile."
Yeah.
And he kept looking at me, and he says, "Well, what are you leaning?" I says, "Jerry, it's the same thing. You don't want to put a seatbelt on. Who are we to tell you that? We're not telling you that because we think that you need one. We're telling you that because if you don't, you'll kill yourself." I said, "You have to understand that."
And other people. And a doctor I met years ago said to me, we were talking about laws, and he says, "I don't like laws any more than anybody else does, but sometimes you have to pass laws to help people."
Yeah.
And he said, there's vitamin D in milk because we knew that kids drink milk, and if it doesn't have vitamin D in it, kids get rickets.
Yeah.
And he said, they put vitamin D in milk. When was the last time you heard about anybody getting rickets?
Yeah.
And he said, so they had to pass a law that said
Yeah.
they have to have vitamin D, which is the same reason they have to pass a law that says you have to wear your seatbelt, or you have to put your kids in a car seat. And we're trying to get two laws to pass in Massachusetts. One that says that your kids should stay rear-facing until they're 2, because all the studies show that when you turn your kid around at 1, their skeletal strength isn't strong enough they can get hurt. And the other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to get a primary seatbelt law in Massachusetts that says, that a police officer can pull you over if you're not wearing a seatbelt. Now, the way it is, they have to find something else, which isn't all that hard to do. But the point is that we know that in states that have primary belt laws, seatbelt use rate goes up 10%.
Yeah.
Just because the people that go, oh, I guess I'll have to. They go ahead and do it. So it's the cost of, some people say, well, it's just me. What do you care about me? It isn't, because when you get hurt and you're out of work and you can't pay your medical bills, I do.
Yeah.
And, you don't realize the amount of extra cost that's involved.
Well, it just goes back to when we did that seatbelt safety law, when it finally passed. Seatbelt usage in Massachusetts went from 20% to 70%.
Oh, yeah.
And even though people were against it, it was now the law,
Yep.
so they did it.
They did it,
Because
exactly.
it was a law. But I remember sitting with people and talking, and I said, do you know the only reason they pass laws is because people don't do what they're supposed to do?
Yep.
And I used to be town moderator in a town, and I get up one year, we had a budget at the town meeting, and I get up and I said, look, folks, this budget, you want to have no taxes this year? Let me show you how easy this is. If we close the schools for 1 year, we can save $7 million. Think of it.
Yep.
Now look, the only difference is going to be, instead of your little Susie and Johnny being 17 when they graduate, they're going to be 18. We can close the schools for you. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Yep.
They'll just be a little older when they graduate. 1 year. I said, now look, if you promise you won't play with matches, we can shut down the fire department. That's going to save us another $4 million. Now people are starting to look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And I went through the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I said, now look, you know what I've known? Show me, raise your hand. Has anybody ever seen snow in Massachusetts on May 2nd? No. No hands up? No. Good. So we can get rid of the highway department because the snow melts. Yep. It will eventually melt.
Yep. Yep.
We don't have to plow it.
Yep. Yep.
Well, now they're laughing,
No.
see?
Yeah.
I said, so you see, folks, it's real easy. If you want the services, you got to pay for it.
You got to pay for it, yeah.
It's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you an area where I think they need to really work on in Massachusetts. It was back to the automobile themselves. In the old days, you had a bumper.
Yep.
That bumper protected the front of that car. Now, those front ends are usually plastic or fiberglass, and they're one piece. That whole front end is one big piece. If you get a mark on it or a scratch or a bang on it, in the old days, they could pop that out, sand it, and repaint it.
Yep.
Well, they can't now, basically, because it'll crack or break. So it's now $3,200
in some cases,
to put on a whole new front end of that car for an accident that probably is a $300 or $400 repair.
Right.
And the law says if it's over $1,000, you have a 6-year surcharge. And I argue, and the law hasn't been changed.
Yep.
And I argue that you should increase the numbers. In other words, it shouldn't be 1,000 anymore. It should be moved up to at least 2,000 or 3,000 before that kicks in, because you can get a little dent, and it's now a $2,500, and you get hammered on your surcharge.
No, my personal car, which was only a couple months old, something hit the back of it.
Yep.
It could have been a shopping cart. It could have been somebody with a trailer hitch.
Yeah, whatever.
And it broke the rear marker light. And if the car was a year old, I probably would have just touched it up, but it still felt too new to do that. So, and it broke with a light attached to the inside of the bumper.
Yeah.
So it needed that whole piece.
Yeah.
And it was $1,100, I guess, by the time it was done.
Yeah.
And it was, realistically, it was some glue and some touch-up paint would have almost done the same thing, but I wanted it, because it was a new car, I wanted it to